So today we're going to take a look at the Z1 Rider 3-axis gimbal for GoPro cameras. Now, this one I chose very specifically because of the way it's designed. The gimbal unit itself, the head, is actually separate from the battery and the board. So what this means is that you can mount the gimbal in the same fashion as you would mount a GoPro Hero camera. It actually has a native GoPro mount here at the bottom. And the first thing I've added was a GoPro tripod mount. Now you can mount, again, any way you can mount a GoPro. So if you want to mount this to your helmet, onto your bike, a suction cup on your car, you only need to mount this unit and you don't have to carry the weight of the batteries and you don't have the handle directly connected to this. So I chose this very specifically because it's more versatile than the other GoPro gimbals that have the handles built in and it's all one unit. The other reason I chose it is the motors are placed on the right side of the GoPro. Not all the gimbals are like that, but this gives you full access to the USB port and the HDMI port. And also these motors are so strong that it can resist a lot of wind resistance when you're mounting it on a helmet, driving down the road on a motorcycle, or mounting it to the hood of your car. It can keep the camera stable, and because the motors are so strong, even if you put a USB cable, because you want to charge your GoPro externally from an external battery, or an HDMI cable so that you can use an external monitor, the influences of those cables still don't affect the balance of the gimbal. It's actually so strong that it can continue to keep the GoPro level even though you have two cables coming off the side. So that's one reason why I chose this one, because it is strong, it is smooth, it works, and I like the design that the head is actually separate from the handle. Now, for people who want the handle to be a part of this, I kind of made my own little bracket so that I can mount this to my handle as well, and then I can just use it in that fashion. But then I also have some other ways that I rigged this up so that I can use it in a lot of different ways where I can change camera positions very quickly from high to low shots and even get steadier shots by adding a second handle. So I'll kind of go through some of the ways that I configure using this gimbal, and then I'll also show you guys some sample footage shot from it. But this is really an underrated gimbal right now. It's new, and ironically, it's actually cheaper than many of the other GoPro gimbals out there. So I think this one is far superior than the other ones. And we'll go through kind of those setups in a bit here. So let me get the pieces and then we'll put that together. All right, so before we get building this little bracket that I have on my handle, I just kind of want to point out that this is the charger here. It uses two little batteries and it charges via USB, so that's nice. No matter where you are, if you have an external USB battery pack, you can actually recharge your batteries or through a cigarette lighter or something like that. Very handy to have the charger like this so that you're not always having to plug into a wall. Another thing is that the motors are strong and it comes with two sets of screws. So this set of screws right here is actually longer, and the reason it's longer is because on the back of the GoPro here you can add a battery backpack. So you can make, you know, the GoPro a little bit fatter and it will support that. It'll support the weight. Now you could put something like an LCD backpack. It actually fits in the gimbal. The problem though is this backpack right here has a little button on the side that seems to hit the side of the gimbal, and when that button is being depressed, the LCD doesn't work properly. But it does have enough room to fit an LCD. It also has enough room to fit a battery backpack if you want your GoPro to be running a lot longer. So if you're going to put that on there, that's where you would use the longer screws to mount your GoPro. All right, so that out of the way, this is the gimbal again, and this is the remote, basically. The batteries are in here, the control boards. There are some buttons here on a joystick to control some of your tilt and roll functions. But if you were to go traveling or on vacation, you may just want the handle itself. Now, there's no way to get rid of the cord, but I'll show you a way of how I can mount this to this handle. And then what I do is I just coil up the cord, and then I can use it kind of in that typical GoPro gimbal fashion with the handle. So the first thing that I did was I grabbed one of these L brackets here. It's just a regular shelf bracket. I put some double-sided tape on the back here, and then I just mount it to the back of this handle. And the double-sided tape is going to keep it from kind of slipping or twisting around. And the next thing I do is I just grab 2 tie straps, and I'm just going to strap the bracket onto the back of this, and that'll keep it from coming loose and also from twisting around as well. All right, we won't be perfect about it, but give you the general idea. So now that I have the bracket mounted to the back of this handle here, I have 2 holes in the bracket. There are 2 holes that come in the bracket, but I drilled them out a little bit bigger to make them 1/4 inch. Now I could cut this bracket down because I only need 1 hole to mount the head of this. Now again, this is on a GoPro tripod mount already, so I can mount this just like this, but instead I left the bracket a little bit longer, and I'm using 2 holes, and I'll show you why. I'm just gonna attach a screw here and get this gimbal to the front. Okay, so I have the gimbal mounted to the handle here. So again, I would coil up this wire, tuck that away, and then I would have it kind of like a normal GoPro handle. But the reason I left the bracket a little bit longer is because I also have this little cell phone clip. Obviously, you could put because you can't mount the backpack on here, you could use the GoPro app to preview what the GoPro sees. So with this little cell phone mount, I can attach it back here. All right, so obviously I would coil up these wires, make them nice and neat, but you kind of get the gist of it. I have my phone here so I can control or change the settings in the GoPro as well as see what the GoPro sees. But as you notice, I do have the unit on right now, and it keeps the horizon level. So the fact that it has a cord and it's a separate piece and it's not one unit shouldn't discourage you, because you could do something like this and then just use it in this mode if that's the way you want to use it. But again, the versatility about this is that the head is separate from the handle. So I'm going to show you another way that I use this setup so that we can take advantage of this remote head. So let me power this off. All right, what I have here is a monopod. Now you can use any stick that you want, but this monopod here is a little unique because you can mount accessories on the thinner part of the monopod as well as the thicker part. So you can remove this here, and you can actually reverse this monopod. So you can use this monopod in this fashion for normal cameras, but you can also turn it around so that you're holding the thicker part here for when you're mounting your GoPro. So this one is kind of handy for that, and then you just put the foot on this end of the monopod. Another thing the monopod offers is a 1/4 thread mounting here on the handle, and that comes in handy. So let me show you how I get this unit on here, and what that allows me to do is boom the GoPro a lot higher or very low if I'm changing my shot. And again, the gimbal keeps the GoPro completely stable the whole time. So let me set that up. What I do first is I have a 15 mil clamp that I just run onto the thread of this monopod here. And then what I have is I have a little nano clamp here with a 15 mil stud, and what I'll do is I'll just put that back here with the 15 mil clamp. And then I can take this remote and I can actually mount it over here. And then because we can mount the head, I can extend this fully, and we can mount the head up here because we have a standard tripod mount. All right, so I got the gimbal mounted to the top of this monopod here. I got my handle down here. Now if I wanted to, because I have this bracket, I can add my cell phone mount over here and also have my cell phone here to preview what the GoPro sees. So that's kind of how I would use this monopod in combination with this gimbal. So let me turn this on. So what you do is you power the unit on first, and then you hold down the mode button for like 2 seconds, and then you'll see that the GoPro is now level. So if I was to boom down, my GoPro would stay level, and then if I was to boom up as well, the GoPro would stay level. So this is very handy when I want to transition the camera at different heights, as well as being more stable operating the GoPro. So in this mode here, if I was to pan, you'll notice that the GoPro doesn't change direction. It's actually going to maintain its heading, as well as if I was to tilt, it would maintain a straight direction. So this is kind of locked off mode. And then the other mode is where we have pan, we have tilt follow, and in this mode we have no tilt follow, no pan follow. This is pan follow and no tilt follow. So there's 3 different modes really that you could choose on here, depending on how you want to operate the gimbal. But this is one way that I do use this gimbal, and I'll show you some of that footage later. I'll show you the next setup that I do, because I notice even with one handle, it may not be super stable as you're walking. So by adding a second handle, you can kind of build sort of like a fig rig, and then you get a little bit more stable shots. And I'll show you that setup right now. All right, so in this setup here, I just put a 15 mil handle, a 15 mil rod coming across. I use the same clamp to hold this handle in place for the gimbal. As you can see, I have a very thick HDMI cable. I typically use a smaller, thinner, lighter, more flexible one, which I can't find at the moment. But even with this one right here, it doesn't give much influence to the gimbal. So as you can see, it is still keeping the GoPro very stable, even though there's a lot of weight happening off to the side of this GoPro right now. Now you notice I'm using an HDMI to a monitor, and you could use the GoPro app. The problem with the GoPro app is, number one, there is some lag in the video, and number two, when you switch to certain frame rates, especially high frame rates, you can't preview that with the app, but you can actually preview all of those frame rates using an HDMI monitor. Even if you're doing 240 frames per second, the HDMI out is still going to give you at least a preview on the monitor, and you see everything in real time. So that's really the benefit of having a gimbal that can support an HDMI cable out of the GoPro. Even if I have this mounted to a 10-foot boom pole, if I can use a monitor, I can switch to all my frame rates and still be able to see exactly what the GoPro sees, even if it's 10 feet away. So that's really why I'm excited about this gimbal here, is that the motors are just strong enough to support a lot of the features that I like to have. And then this setup right here with 2 handles actually makes me more stable as I'm kind of walking and doing a follow shot, because even though the GoPro is a wide lens and you're on a gimbal, surprisingly with just one handle you'll still get more movement than you would with 2 handles, or at least that's the case with me. So anyways, that's just kind of a quick look at the Z1 Rider and how the ability to use it in a lot of different ways, as opposed to just buying the other gimbals that have a built-in handle. This one is much more versatile. Now, I'm not even getting into all the sports stuff, because you can mount this head onto the handlebar of your bike. You can actually mount it to a chest mount of your, like the typical GoPro chest mount. You can attach it to a helmet, a motorcycle helmet, and all of that is because the batteries are separate. So all of that weight is gone. You're typically just mounting this as you would with your GoPro camera. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, check it out. This is a Z1 Rider. If you have any questions about this gimbal right here, hit me up at the blog, cheesycam.com.
Mm-hmm.